You can do this same project and do a bowl similar to that. If you only have two colors of wood, let's say because you strictly deal in domestic wood, and you have walnut and maple, two contrasting things, and you make them precisely the same size. Let's say you make them 3/8 by 3/8, and you put them every other one, and you do it. When you do your rings, if you turn them 90 degrees from one another, you actually can end up with a checkerboard pattern and everything. So there's a lot you can do with it by just playing with it. And you got to experiment. That's how I learned how to do this, is experimenting. If it doesn't come out, it goes in the trash. All segment turning, when you're doing rings, there's basically three types of segment work in three different categories. What we just did is lamination. You have what they call stave, which I'm not even going to try to get into. At least not tonight. Then you have what they call ring segment. Ring segment is the most popular when you look at segment work. It's where you take blocks of wood, glue them together, and make a ring out of it, and then laminate them and stack them up. Most of my work is that way. The rings, you're always going to start with a drawing. Now this I just drew real quick, and then I broke it down. And so you can see it maybe a little better. That's a height of one ring. Then I have one here, and then one here, and one here. Then I have one way up here. Then I have this one. And then I have that one. And then I got the one at the very top. But there's 8 rings in that. The space here is for what they call a feature ring. Okay. These could be solid, or they could be a feature ring. That's up to you. It's like here. You could put a diamond up here. You could put a zigzag down here. All right. But what you need to know is how to figure out the number of rings in here. When you have a ring, if that, I have an S there. So this would be a solid base, and it would be 3.5 inches in diameter, which is, a lot of people draw the other side because it's easier for them to see, I guess. I don't know. But you have a center line here. So this is your radius. If it's 1.5 inches, then you got what? 1 3/4 is your radius. So it's 2 times your radius gives you your diameter. All right. You got 4 here. You got 4.5 here. You got 5, 5, 5, 3.5, and 2.5. To figure out how to come up with the rings, right? It's simple mathematical problem, which is quite easy. You need to know the circumference. To find out the circumference, it is the diameter times pi. Pi is 3.14. So if I do 4 is my diameter, then my circumference, when I add it out, is 12 and 9/16. Okay. Now I'm going to do 16 segments in that ring. All right. So it's 16 divided into 12 and 9/16, which would give me the length of each segment. So that works out to 13/16. Okay. Then I need to know the height of the ring, which is 3/4, because each one of these squares is 1/4 inch. Okay. And then you need to know the width of it. The width is this mark here. You go 1/4 inch out from your edge, right? And being my edge is at an angle, I want the upper part, which is the furthest point out. And down here, I'm going to go 1/4 inch back. So now I've got 1, 2, 3, 4. So my width would be 1 inch. And that's how you work on it, figure out a segment. All right. So basically, if I draw this out, this is your length. Your height is here. Your width is back that way. So now you know that, like for this ring right here, this here is going to be equal to 13/16. The height is 3/4. And the width going back is going to be 1 inch. All right. When you get up to your segment, you would do the same math, and the math is nothing more than diameter times pi, which is 3.14. Sorry about my writing. All right. And that gives you your circumference. To get your length, it's circumference divided by number of segments, which in this case, I have it down as 16. If it was 8, it would be different. It would be double, actually. The angle, which is here, if I have, I'm going to go to another page. In a circle, a completed circle, you have 360 degrees, right? To find the angle, it's 360 degrees divided by 16, which I believe is 22 and a half. Right, 22 and a half. But that's not the angle you're going to cut, because when you have two segments coming together, to form the ring, you actually have, it's half of the 22 and a half, which would give you 11.25. All right. I cut most of mine on a miter box. In fact, I cut all mine on a miter box, unless they're super large. But it's basically 360 degrees, which is the degrees in a circle divided by the number of segments. So this angle here, from here to here, which is the outside, would be 11 and a quarter, right? Because with 16 pieces, the total is 22 and a half. So you got 11 and a quarter here, and then you got 11 and a quarter here. And you add them together, it gives you your 22. So it's 360 degrees divided by 16 divided by 2. Okay? You need that 2 in there, otherwise it's not going to work out. All right, that's the boring part. Math is always the boring part. Drawings, you can sketch whatever you want to. Of course, you don't need a magic marker. You can do it in a pencil. And then if you don't like it, you erase it and redraw it. But I've got a lot more to go through. All right, because that's this part. Your drawings, your math, that's the only math you have, really. If you were in construction and lucky enough to have a calculator, a construction calculator, you just start it up and you go, 12 is my diameter, and I hit circle and it says diameter up there. I hit it again, it gives me the area for that circle at a 1-inch thickness. And if I hit it again, it gives me the circumference. So that's how I do my math. If it was a regular calculator, you could do it with the 3.14, and it works out basically the same. Of course, the more accurate you want it, the more decimals you go out on the pie. I cut my segments on a miter box. Now this was cut off my table to show you exactly how I use it. On a miter box, you have a big hole in the back. So now if you're cutting little pieces, they're going to be shooting out the back or somewhere in your shop. So what you do is you make up a board like this. This is MDF. The one I start with is about 4 foot long. I take a piece here. This is 5. It can be 5, 6 inches. It doesn't matter. This is your base. You have a piece going up for your back. Then your back, your miter box has a table and a back, and that can get clamped right to that. That stops those little pieces, because sometimes I cut really small pieces with a miter box. And that way they're right there for me. Okay. But that's how it is. The one thing that when you make this, if you know, I don't know whether you can see it. Can you see the curve line right in here, which is nothing more than taking it on a table saw and ripping a curve on it before I glue it up. When you glue it up, you want to put blocks in here to clamp it, to hold it square. Because otherwise it could tilt one way or the other, and that's going to throw you off when you go to cut your angles. All right. But that's how you can cut them on a miter box. There's gadgets out on the market to cut them on the table saw. If you got a table saw. Where you can buy plastic pieces and you set them up on their jig system, which is nothing more than a sliding table, and that's supposed to be accurate too. I don't know. Like I said, most of my cuts are on a miter box. I can cut as quick as anybody can on a table saw. You're gonna, when you set it up, you put the saw through there, and let's say I want a piece. I don't have a piece. Oh, well. Did you see a screwdriver? Here it is. I'm going to take that out of there. And you're going to have a board, and you're going to, oh, well, that's because it's a different angle. You're going to cut that angle on there with your miter box. Mine usually starts, oh. My first cut is usually that way. These are cut at 11 1/4. So it's not the same as that. But you cut that, then you flip your board over, you have a stop, you can bring that out to your line, and that distance is the distance for your segment. All right. Now I usually cut my segments about a 1/16 over what I want. The reason being is I'm a sander. So I take them over to my disc sander, and then I sand them down to the exact size. But I set my miter box up to cut them true. Because that, when I'm sanding them, I'm only sanding maybe a 30-second off each side. All right. But that's how you can cut on a miter box. On a table saw, you can get a jig. You can make up a jig. You can have a swinging arm that has pegs for different angles, and you can adjust it until you have the angle that you want, and then put a stop at that point. Or you can make up different jigs for different angles for your table saw. But a miter box just swings around. When you're cutting, this tool here is one of the most important tools that you could have, believe me or not. It comes in handy. In fact, I need to make myself another one. What it is an Allen wrench stuck in a piece of dowel, and I sanded a point on it and everything else. You're saying, well, what's that for? Well, when you're cutting a miter box and you're cutting something that's only a 1/2 inch triangle, this becomes your finger, and you can put it in there and hold the piece in place without worrying about cutting your finger off. All right. this would get set and hold the, like if you were cutting that on that table and that saw blade was coming down on this, you could hold that piece like that against your stop and you get to keep your fingers that way. It also comes in handy when you're just sanding the little pieces because that sandpaper can hurt. And I bleed enough as it is. My dog has me torn up. Once I cut all my angles and I will have rings stacked around and everything for the different rings that are going into the segment. And I'll have a stack of pieces for each one. I take them and before I knock that off there, can you get down here for a change? All right. I take them over to a disc sander. Now, if this was my disc sander here, I have this tray. My disc sander is turning that way, so my stop is here. What I have there it is. I have a block of wood. This one says 16 inches on it, or 16 segments, which is 11 1/4. To adjust it, I can slide this in and tight to that. And then I can sand the segment. And usually, like I said, I'm a 16th inch over. So I'm going to take that and this would be clamped and it's sitting on the table of the disc sander. And then you're going to sand that and just touch it. And then you would take it and turn it around. And then when you do it again, you're going to press that all the way down tight till it hits the stop here. And then that would have your distance, the distance you want. And then you can take calipers, if you can open them. And then you can check it and see if it's what the distance you want. This one here's 1 1/4 inches. So the calipers come in quite handy, especially when you're double checking your measurements, because you're constantly double checking them. My calipers, I don't know whether Phil could use them because they're in 1/2 inches and 3/8 and 1/8, where Phil would probably be using decimal points. That's how you get your segments sanded. And once you're done on the sanding disc, you're still not done sanding. Because what happens is on the sanding, you get a little burr or something. So before you start gluing these together, you got to wipe them off. That has a track that goes in on the disc sander. If you're can think of it that way. I have one of these for almost every segment. So I have one of these made up for 10 segments, 8 segments, 12 segments. I believe I go up to 20 some odd segments. And they sit in the drawer. But this comes in handy for doing feature rings. I just blew this ring apart and have the parts down here. You got to glue them up. When you glue up a ring, you can do it on a table like this. And that camera go this way just a little so that it hits center there. Now, I use this table when my hand won't cover, can't stretch the rubber band far enough. You can put the nails going around like this. Because my hand won't stretch a rubber band and get a ring in there all at the same time. The nails will hold the rubber band for me. And I can put multiple rubber bands around to do that. Then you take your segments, if I can find them all, because I popped them apart, and you're going to put them in there. After you sand them all and clean them up. Okay, couple more segments. Hopefully I have them all. One, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. One more. Here it is. Now, to glue these up, you're gonna, it's a good idea to put wax paper down over this and then put your nails in, but being I'm not using real glue. I would glue up 8 of these. So you got 4 and 4, because that makes half a circle. I glue up these 4. I would not put glue in these 2. I would leave them unglued. Then what you do is you start taking your rubber band off, or your nails out is actually easier. And it starts coming together little by little. And then your ring, you can shape your ring. Now, you got two segments. Where'd that cup go? Oh, there. You got two segments in here that don't have glue on. At that point, pull that apart there and slide one of them down in there. And then directly across from it, the other one, right? Then you can straighten your ring out. You want to try to keep the outside points all intact and lined up. And you're still dealing with wet glue. So now you got so many rubber bands on there that will stay together. And you actually have enough pressure on that you don't need much more pressure. That will hold that together. If you want, you can add more rubber bands. If you're still not happy with it, you can add a band clamp. Then you can take a band clamp. If you don't feel it's tight enough, and just put a band clamp on it. I'm going to put a band clamp on it so it stays together on my way home. Now, once this dries up, I can take that over to a disc sander and touch it real lightly and resand those. And if there's any variance in my ring where that may be out, and this one looks pretty good because it's equal there and it's equal there. And the lot, that point to that point looks pretty darn equal too. So there would, I mean, that might only be a tap on a disc sander, but you can take that, put it there. If you have a ring, let's say you only got a 12-inch disc sander, you can't do a ring that's more than 12 inches. What you can do is take a flat piece of MDF or this stuff, put a square edge on it, take some spray glue, spray it, put sandpaper on it, and then rub it back and forth. Because it doesn't, it's not going to be, as long as you're accurate with everything, it is not going to be out, hardly at all. And just a little touch will straighten it out. Okay, now I got my rings made because I'm going to take these out, glue that together, and form a ring. The other way to glue a ring is, if you notice on this one, is it has tape around it. You can take a board like this, which has an edge here, right? And you take the blue tape. Well, first of all, you cover it with packing tape, blue tape, something to keep the glue off of it. That way it stays cleaner. You take this blue tape, you stretch it out, and then you take each one of these segments and you line them up, and then they're standing up like that. That's good. You stick that on the blue tape and you hold that back tight. And then you take the next one and you put it there. And it's on that blue tape. And that one, and that one, and so on until you get them all done. And then what you do is you lay one of these at your eight segment part. And you take this and you roll it up with the tape, forming a circle, and you tape it together, and you would have one of these and one of these there, so that you could, again, true up any indiscretions that you would have in the angles. But these are pivot points, which make all these eight tight. All right. This is quick stuff because there's a lot of it. Once you get your rings made up, you're going to have a faceplate, glue block. You're going to mount that on your lathe. You're going to put that on there so you can see. And you want this surface when you start with your rings, and you're going to smooth that out as this is turning. And you're going to take that and you're going to clean that surface off and make that true. Once you get it true, and you tell by this method, is you lay that across there, and you should not be able to see light coming up in underneath there. And that's the way you want to start. But this is nothing. All right. Once you get that done, then you can put your base on. Oh, wait a minute. Once you get it to what you think is true, then with it running, you can take this and put that there, and you sand that surface. Now, with it off, if this stays like that while you're standing, it can slide back and forth, but what you don't want it to be doing is wobbling like this. Because if you see it wobbling a little bit, that's not true. So you have to go back and true it up and get it so that it is true, because that's not supposed to wobble. It can jerk around and it can act like it's coming back when it's grabbing the grain a certain way, but it should not wobble back and forth like this. And that's extreme. It would be just a little wobble, because chances are. Now, you got your solid segment, you glue that on. Once you glue that on, you're going to go through the same process that you did here, and you're going to true that up, making sure that that line You don't see light there, and you can sand it, and you get the sanded area. Then you start, and you have a ring that's already made up. This side is rough. This side is sanded. This side was sanded on my disc sander. So it's good. I can take it and I can glue that as my next ring. And when it dries, then I do the same process that I did here to true this ring and get it parallel with that and have this ring nice and smooth. So when I'm done, it's going to be sanded just like that. And that's how you build your rings on a bowl. So now we've covered making a ring. We've covered this. We've covered that. What haven't? Oh, well, that's how you build a segment ring. All right, real quick, because I didn't get far enough along. I'm too slow. And this is a lot of information. If you want to do a diamond, to lay out a diamond real quick, and I hope there's still people there, you put a line through the centers. This line is up through the center. This line goes that way through the center. You take it, you bring it over, you bring it up the back, and you bring it around. It has to be all the way around the piece. Same way this way. It has to be all the way around the piece. Now you determine your height. So off the center line, if you're going up in it, this is a big one. There's a big diamond. I don't have diamonds this big, but this is for visual effect. All right. But you go from, if you go an inch and an inch, and whatever this distance is, you do it over here, you connect the two dots, right? Now, you got that. You have to have the identical diamond on this side. All right. That's why you got to carry it around. If you remember this jig from the disc sander, this is a board that I have. And if you notice, there's a diamond on it. That angle can be recut. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put that on there, and I'm going to bring this in until it hits that mark, and that line goes away to form a diamond. When I'm done that, I got this block, which is approximately the same angle as there. I'm going to glue that on there, and I'm going to set it aside. Okay. This is Theobald's way, Kurt Theobald, and Ray Allen's way. It is not Malcolm Tibbetts' way. You glue that on there because now this is sanded and gone. Now, you're going to take that, and this is why you need it on both sides, is because you're going to reverse that around, and that's going to go on that block of wood like that. And you're going to sand it on this side this time. Before you had it this way, now you got to flip it around and do it that way. You're going to glue that piece on. Now, what you want to do is after these two are glued on, you want to make this top edge parallel so you can turn this around or have a different one and run it in square so it's parallel to this bottom. Then you're going to take it and you're going to do the bottom and you're going to sand that side. You've already got them on this side. This side is parallel to that. You're going to sand that side down. My suggestion is cut the corners off so you don't have too much sanding. And then flip it and sand that. And you're going to keep gluing each piece as you go around. And as you sand the next one, it sands the top of that off to make a parallel line. And then the next piece would actually go out over that like that. And that's how you form a diamond. All right. Now, to decide what size of diamond, you can use graph paper. That's why I have 1/8 inch graph paper, because I can do real fine details and makes things small. If you take a block of wood, length of wood, you want that even with that. This size and that size are going to be the same. That size can be whatever. This edge and this edge have to be the same so that it's equal all the way. So you have equal to equal, equal to equal, and the middle, whatever you want. You can cut that at an angle. And it's going to, if you got 16 segments in a ring, you're going to cut that and have a piece. You're going to cut that one, have a piece. And for a 16 segment ring, you're going to need 32 pieces. Okay. Now, the reason they all have to be the same in the color size is what you're going to do is take that, flip that around, sand that down a little bit so you get a nice joint, and you glue that together, and you got a zigzag. All right. It makes it really simple to do a zigzag. Now, you can see I got points up here and points down there. That would then go over to my table saw, and with carpet tape or a double-sided face tape, I would put it on a board, put them up against my fence on the board into the double-sided tape, have them all lined up, and then I could rip that down to what I want. And then once they are ripped down, then you can flip it around and rip down the other one. And actually you could take it over and finish cutting each one on the thing. Then what you do is you would cut your angle going back where that's standing up. And that would give you a zigzag. So really quick, you got a diamond and a zigzag. A simple diamond, is that good? That's a simple diamond in cherry. That was the first diamond I ever did. In fact, that's the first segment piece that I ever did. But that was just a simple diamond, one piece. From there, I looked at Ray Allen, and Ray Allen put a little block in the middle of it. And I'm not here to show the pieces off, I'm here to show the diamonds. But you can see the diamond in it. All right. I got two more because you can get fancier and fancier. This one has, that is a diamond with little extra pieces on it that you can do. So you're going from a simple diamond to one that's a little less than that to a fancier diamond. This is also Ray Allen's. Okay. Then if you don't like that, you can do a diamond like that. And that's 4 diamonds to make 1 diamond. With veneers in between them. So there's a lot you can do with diamonds. Up top there is your zigzag. All right. So I just brought these to show you diamonds and the zigzags because I don't have any more time left and I'm out of breath. So Scott, I'm going to turn this back over to you and start cleaning up.
Hey, Ray, that was great. Thank you very much. I'm going to stop the recording now.
Well, I just hope everybody enjoyed it. And if we ever get to do house, they can come over and we can spend a lot more time doing it.
Right, right.